want to bring in now to our conversation Suzanne Craig, investigative reporter at the New York Times and an MSNBC political analyst. Our panel, thankfully, is still with us. So I want to get your reporting into President Trump's tax returns and finances into this conversation because it essentially helped kickstart the investigation that Attorney General James did into the Trump organization. Can you talk a little bit about how that investigation came together? Because I think it is so deeply intertwined with what we're watching play out in this courthouse in Norfolk right now.
Yeah, it goes back to origin stories. And that investigation started back in 2016. And it was a simple question for reporters. This is often where reporting starts, just with a question from an editor, what do we know about Donald Trump's finances? And the answer was actually very little. And during the campaign, I always think it's so important to go back and remember, during that period, he promised, when he was running, he promised American voters several times that he was going to release his tax return.
The clock is already running. It's just past dawn, and inside a quiet federal building, lawyers are whispering instead of speaking. Phones vibrate. Faces go pale. One document, thick, sealed, stamped, sits on a polished table like a loaded weapon. This is not a campaign scandal. This is not political noise. This is the moment Donald Trump feared for nearly a decade, because once tax returns are audited, there is no spin. Behind closed doors, the danger is immediate, not theoretical, not someday. Legal exposure here is measured in statutes, penalties, and prison years, criminal tax fraud, false statements, possible perjury if sworn claims contradict filings, civil penalties that can bankrupt an empire, criminal contempt if subpoenas are ignored, and the most dangerous part? Audits don't rely on headlines, they rely on math. Tick. 1 minute after the House Ways and Means Committee issues its subpoena. Tick. 2 minutes in, IRS analysts are already cross-checking foreign transfers against domestic filings. Tick. 3 minutes, and the first red flags surface, income that never appeared on any return. This investigation didn't start with prosecutors. It started with one simple journalistic question back in 2016. What do we actually know about Donald Trump's finances? The answer was disturbing. Almost nothing. Trump promised voters again and again that he would release his tax returns. He never did. That silence didn't protect him. It bought time. Now that time is gone. The subpoena covers 10 full years, 2015 through 2025, a financial x-ray of the Trump Organization, and according to internal findings now colliding with court records, the IRS has flagged more than $2.1 billion in income that allegedly never made it onto those returns. Not millions, billions. Foreign money, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, China. Funds allegedly routed through offshore accounts, shell corporations, and Cayman Islands transfers. Structures that prosecutors recognize instantly. Structures that turn mistakes into intent. Structures that turn audits into criminal referrals. Inside the room, hands tremble as lawyers flip pages. They know the difference between civil exposure and criminal jeopardy. A civil audit costs money. A criminal audit costs freedom. And when foreign income intersects with the Constitution, violations of the Emoluments Clause, the stakes explode beyond taxes. This is where loyalty becomes a liability. Follow the law, and evidence leads straight upward. Protect the powerful, and you risk contempt, disbarment, or worse. Every signature, every sworn statement, every email now matters, especially after judges have already flagged suspicious financial communications, like the infamous Saudi-linked payments that once looked isolated but now appear part of a much larger pattern. The walls are closing in, not with sirens, but with spreadsheets. And here's the terrifying truth. Audits don't stop once they start. They widen, they connect, they refer, and once criminal investigators step in, there is no off-ramp. The question isn't whether Trump is nervous. The question is which document, still unseen, turns this from exposure into indictment. And when that page is revealed, everything changes.
We've become very good friends over a fairly short period of time. I was in Saudi Arabia in May, and we are bringing back hundreds of billions of dollars into the United States, and we understand that, and they understand that. Some of the things that have been approved and are currently under construction and will be delivered to Saudi Arabia very soon, and that's for their protection. But if you look in terms of dollars, $3 billion, $533 million, $525 million. That's peanuts for you.
The morning sun barely reaches inside the Norfolk Federal Building, but tension is already suffocating. Phones buzz, papers shuffle, and every step feels like it could trigger a disaster. On the polished table sits a single envelope marked confidential, containing documents that could unravel a decade of secrecy. This isn't political theater. This is real, immediate legal jeopardy. And at the center, Donald Trump. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Reports on States for full, credible updates on this story. Inside the courtroom, Trump sits rigid, staring at the documents before him. Lawyers whisper urgently, flipping through tax returns, audit files, and bank statements. Each page tells the same story: a staggering $2.1 billion in unreported foreign income, allegedly funneled through offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, and other tax havens. Funds traceable to Saudi Arabia, Qatar, China, and the UAE. Money that never appeared on a single IRS filing. The House Ways and Means Committee, after years of legal battles that went all the way to the Supreme Court, finally secured a full decade of Trump's tax returns, covering 2015 through 2025. The IRS audit revealed discrepancies so vast they could not be ignored. Undeclared rental income from foreign delegations, hidden payments tied to properties like Mar-a-Lago and Trump Tower, and offshore transfers coinciding with major bookings by foreign governments. Every second ticks louder. The difference between what was reported on tax forms and what financial records show is nearly $1.9 billion. That's not rounding error. That's potentially criminal tax fraud. Filing false returns under penalty of perjury, failing to disclose foreign income, and misreporting Schedule E income for global properties, all federal crimes with decades-long precedents. Civil penalties are severe. Criminal exposure could mean decades behind bars if prosecutors stack counts year by year. Trump's inner conflict is palpable. Follow the law or protect the empire. Swear the truth or risk obstruction, contempt, and more. The courtroom whispers feel like a countdown. The grand jury is already reviewing referral notes, and each second brings potential indictment closer. And now there's the $40 million Saudi payment, highlighted in Judge Ma's courtroom earlier this week. An email documenting the transaction directly contradicts Trump's sworn returns. The pieces are connecting. The Immelmans case, IRS findings, and House committee subpoenas all point to a single, undeniable pattern of financial concealment. The camera lingers on Trump's face, hands trembling, eyes flicking between his attorneys and the envelope. Outside, reporters type feverishly, flashing headlines across screens. Trump faces $2 billion tax exposure. Audit confirms unreported foreign income. Social media erupts. Public scrutiny crashes down, faster than any legal maneuver can respond. Tick, tick, tick. The documents are about to enter evidence. The decision he makes in the next few moments could define the rest of his life. And as the gavel hovers over the bench, the world waits to see whether truth or deception will prevail. Cliffhanger line. Because once these documents are officially revealed, there's no turning back, and the consequences will reach farther than anyone ever imagined. The morning after the audit documents are revealed, the legal and political world is in shock. Donald Trump's financial empire, once projected as untouchable, is suddenly vulnerable. The House Ways and Means Committee isn't waiting. They're demanding all supporting documentation, bank statements, wire transfers, offshore account details. Every dollar needs to be accounted for. Time is no longer measured in weeks. It's counted in days, hours, even minutes. Inside the committee offices, analysts map out the $1.9 billion in unreported foreign income. Every transfer, every payment, every offshore maneuver is traced. Saudi Arabian delegations renting floors at Mar-a-Lago, Qatari officials booking hundreds of rooms, Chinese business groups staying at Trump Tower. The timing aligns with transfers through the Cayman Islands. It's a pattern, not coincidence. Trump's legal team scrambles. The penalties alone are staggering. A 75% negligence penalty on the unreported income could cost $1.4 billion, on top of the federal taxes owed and decades of accrued interest. Total liabilities could surpass $2 billion more than Trump's liquid assets. Add in New York judgments totaling $464 million and asset seizures across Trump properties, and the empire's financial stability teeters on the edge. The courtroom drama continues. Lawyers whisper about criminal exposure, tax evasion, filing false returns, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Each false return counts separately, meaning potential prison sentences could accumulate for dozens of counts. The math is simple, the law is clear, and the evidence is overwhelming. Trump's political position crumbles in tandem. The newly introduced 8th article of impeachment, focused on tax evasion, connects financial misconduct to constitutional violations. Republican senators, previously hesitant, now face a tangible, relatable case. A president allegedly hiding $2 billion in foreign income while millions of Americans dutifully pay their taxes. Public opinion is shifting rapidly, fueled by media coverage, polls, and relentless social media attention. Bankruptcy looms for the Trump Organization. Chapter 11. Filings could be imminent, exposing decades of financial secrets and forcing liquidation of high-profile properties. Trustees in bankruptcy court will dissect every transaction. No loyalty, no spin. The empire Trump cultivated could vanish, leaving creditors and federal authorities to seize what's left. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice monitors the situation closely. With Pam Bondi facing legal troubles of her own, a new leadership at the DOJ is unlikely to shield Trump. Clear evidence of $2 billion in unreported foreign income, documented offshore transfers, and false tax returns provides prosecutors with a compelling path forward. Any political considerations are secondary to the overwhelming legal clarity. Internationally, the story ripples. Governments implicated in these transactions, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, China, are watching closely. Emails, transfers, and audit findings make it clear that foreign governments may have funneled money in ways that violated U.S. law. This is no longer a domestic scandal. It's an international legal and political storm. Trump's inner conflict intensifies. Every move now carries consequences. Cooperate and hope for mitigation, or resist and risk contempt, referral, and criminal indictment. Every asset, every signature, every word under oath could tip the balance. The world is watching, and the countdown is relentless. Closing shot, Trump standing in Mar-a-Lago's hallway, staring at a wall of financial charts, the weight of the numbers reflected in his eyes. Cliffhanger line. With billions at stake and legal action closing in from every direction, the question is no longer if, but how badly this empire will collapse. The story deepens. Analysts in the House Ways and Means Committee trace the pattern of hidden income across borders. Every offshore account tells a story. Funds from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, China, and the UAE, routed through shell companies in the Cayman Islands and British Virgin Islands. The transfers align perfectly with major foreign bookings at Trump properties, creating a nearly flawless paper trail of unreported income. This isn't abstract. This is evidence with timestamps, transaction IDs, and cross-referenced emails. In court, Judge Ma's courtroom becomes the epicenter of the storm. Trump's lawyers attempt to downplay the significance, arguing timing, rounding, or technical errors. But prosecutors push back, presenting IRS audit files, emails documenting the infamous $40 million Saudi transfer, and records from Mar-a-Lago bookings. The contradictions are stark. Trump's tax returns claim no such income, yet financial records and communications prove otherwise. Legal experts in the gallery whisper, this is a textbook case of tax fraud. The numbers alone are damning. Over 6 years, unreported foreign rental income exceeds $1.1 billion. Negligence penalties alone could reach $1.4 billion before federal taxes, interest, or state judgments are added. When New York's $464 million judgment is included, the total financial exposure approaches $2 billion, potentially eclipsing Trump's available assets. Each unreported transaction could trigger separate counts of tax evasion, multiplying the criminal risk. The courtroom drama intensifies as internal conflicts flare. Trump's advisors urge compliance, while political allies suggest delay or obfuscation. Every decision carries moral and legal weight. Follow the law and expose years of hidden dealings, or resist and risk contempt, obstruction, and a cascade of federal prosecutions. Tick by tick, the pressure mounts. Meanwhile, the public narrative is shifting. Polls show increasing dissatisfaction among voters, especially Republican constituents who understand tax fairness. The 8th article of impeachment, focused solely on tax evasion, now resonates more than previous allegations. Voters see it as relatable, undeniable, and tangible. A president allegedly hiding $2 billion in foreign income while ordinary Americans follow the rules. It's a moral and political shockwave. Internationally, scrutiny intensifies. Governments whose funds appear in these transactions are now implicated in the public eye, raising questions of emoluments, violations, and foreign influence. Every document made public adds pressure, not just on Trump, but on those countries, creating a geopolitical dimension to the legal crisis. The segment closes with a tense courtroom moment. Trump leans over, reviewing documents, knowing the IRS audit, House subpoenas, and Judge Ma's evidence all converge. His empire's survival, and potentially his freedom, hangs by a thread. Cliffhanger line: with offshore trails exposed and billions unaccounted for, the courtroom becomes the stage for a historic showdown, where every move could tip the balance between empire and ruin. The financial storm is no longer theoretical, it's happening. Across New York, the Attorney General has begun seizing assets tied to Trump's personal and corporate holdings. Judgments totaling $464 million are being enforced. Bank accounts are frozen. Properties, including Mar-a-Lago, Trump Tower, and luxury golf resorts, are now effectively untouchable unless debts are resolved. Every move Trump makes is being watched, recorded, and constrained. Inside the Trump Organization offices, executives scramble. Legal teams review IRS liens, House subpoenas, and federal judgments. The numbers are crushing: $2 billion in unreported foreign income, potential penalties of $1.4 billion, federal taxes owed, interest spanning a decade. These exceed available liquidity. Analysts warn bankruptcy is not just possible, it's inevitable. The potential Chapter 11 filing would expose decades of hidden financial maneuvers. Trustees would comb through every transaction, loan, and offshore transfer, unraveling the empire Trump spent years projecting as untouchable. The mask of billionaire invincibility is slipping. Buildings could be sold off to satisfy creditors. The Trump name, long synonymous with wealth and power, faces public scrutiny and possible erasure from marquee properties. Meanwhile, the criminal consequences escalate: tax evasion, filing false returns, and conspiracy to defraud the United States are all on the table. With each year of unreported income counting as a separate offense, Trump faces dozens of potential federal counts. Sentencing guidelines indicate up to 5 years per count, which could accumulate into decades if pursued aggressively. Legal experts note that this is not a political attack. It's clear documented evidence from IRS audits and House Ways and Means investigations. Politically, the 8th article of impeachment targeting tax evasion reshapes the narrative. Republican senators previously hesitant to consider conviction now face tangible, relatable evidence. $2 billion hidden from the IRS resonates with voters who pay their taxes faithfully. Public outrage is growing. Surveys show plummeting approval ratings, and party leaders are increasingly cautious about openly defending him. International scrutiny continues. Countries implicated in foreign transfers, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, China, observe closely. Exposed payments tied to Trump properties risk being labeled as improper emoluments or foreign interference. The scandal is no longer domestic alone. It has a global dimension, potentially impacting diplomatic relations. Trump's inner turmoil is vivid. Every legal misstep could trigger more asset freezes, accelerate bankruptcy, or provoke federal criminal referrals. Time is running out, and the countdown feels palpable. Lawyers urge immediate compliance, while political advisors push delay. Each choice carries grave consequences. Closing shot, a close-up of Trump staring at a wall covered in financial charts, the weight of billions and potential prison time reflected in his eyes. Cliffhanger line: with assets frozen, billions at risk, and bankruptcy looming, the next days could decide whether the Trump empire survives or collapses completely. The legal storm now moves from civil exposure to potential criminal consequences. With the IRS audits, House Ways and Means findings, and Judge Ma's courtroom evidence converging, the committee is preparing to refer Trump for criminal prosecution. Tax fraud, filing false returns, and conspiracy to defraud the United States form the core of the case. Every year of unreported foreign income counts separately, multiplying the number of potential charges. Prosecutors see a clear path to building a multi-count indictment, each with up to 5 years in federal prison. Inside the Trump legal team, panic rises. Strategy meetings are tense. Advisors weigh whether to cooperate with federal authorities or fight every subpoena. Each delay increases the risk of contempt of court, obstruction charges, and accelerated penalties. The Department of Justice, particularly under new leadership post Pam Bondi, is unlikely to shield Trump. They're under scrutiny themselves, and taking decisive action against tax fraud, backed by mountains of documented evidence, is politically and legally sound. The political stakes are equally high. The 8th article of impeachment focused on tax evasion resonates strongly with the public. Tax fraud is tangible, relatable, and undeniable. Republican senators, once reluctant, are now confronting a case they can explain to constituents. A president allegedly hiding $2 billion in foreign income while ordinary Americans comply with tax law. Public outrage grows and approval ratings continue to slip. Political allies begin distancing themselves, aware that defending tax evasion could damage their careers. Campaign finance concerns add a further layer of complexity. If unreported foreign funds were funneled into political activities, staff salaries, rallies, or campaign advertising, it could constitute illegal foreign contributions, triggering violations under federal election law. Both the Federal Election Commission and DOJ could investigate, layering additional charges atop the tax case. The scope of potential federal crimes continues to expand, creating a legal minefield. Internationally, governments implicated in these payments, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, China, face scrutiny. Public exposure of these transactions could embarrass officials, highlight foreign influence, and increase diplomatic tension. For Trump, this international dimension magnifies the stakes, as evidence of emoluments violations or foreign influence could compound domestic legal and political troubles. Trump's internal conflict intensifies. Every decision, fight, comply, delay, or negotiate, carries consequences for his financial empire, political legacy, and personal freedom. With asset seizures, bankruptcy looming, criminal referrals, and international scrutiny, the countdown is relentless. Every document, every email, every transaction could tip the balance toward ruin. Closing shot. Trump alone in Mar-a-Lago's library, surrounded by stacks of financial documents, staring at a map tracking offshore transfers. Cliffhanger line. With criminal referrals imminent and foreign entanglements under scrutiny, the next move could determine whether Trump faces prosecution or total political annihilation. The walls of justice close in. After years of financial maneuvering, legal battles, and political posturing, Donald Trump now faces the culmination of every risk he took. Bankruptcy filings are imminent. Asset seizures across New York and other states are ongoing, and federal authorities are poised to pursue criminal charges for tax evasion, filing false returns, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Inside the Trump Organization, executives scramble to assess remaining liquidity, preserve any assets, and prepare for the public fallout. Mar-a-Lago, Trump Tower, golf resorts, and luxury hotels, all iconic symbols of wealth and power, could now be liquidated to satisfy creditors and federal judgments. Trustees in bankruptcy court will meticulously track every transaction. Secrets hidden for decades are about to become public record. The empire that once seemed untouchable is unraveling in real time. The House Ways and Means Committee has already referred documented evidence of $2 billion in unreported foreign income, offshore account transfers, and false returns to the Department of Justice. Criminal prosecution is no longer theoretical. Every false return from 2015 through 2025 constitutes a separate count, each carrying potential 5-year prison sentences, stacking the stakes sky high. The DOJ, under new leadership, is unlikely to show leniency. This is a high-profile, well-documented case of systemic financial fraud. Politically, the fallout is seismic. The 8th article of impeachment focused on tax evasion is gaining traction, resonating with the American public and undecided Republican senators. Approval ratings plummet and party leaders cautiously distance themselves. The narrative is clear: a president allegedly hiding billions in taxes, using offshore accounts, and potentially receiving foreign funds illegally cannot escape accountability. Public outrage grows, fueled by relatable numbers and concrete evidence. International attention adds another layer of pressure. Countries implicated in the transactions are scrutinized for potential violations of U.S. emoluments law. Embarrassment, diplomatic tension, and political scrutiny amplify the gravity of Trump's situation. Every document, email, and transfer traced from abroad to U.S. properties strengthens the case against him. As the final gavel looms, Trump's internal conflict is stark. Follow the law and risk self-incrimination, resist and face contempt and accelerated criminal charges, or attempt political maneuvering in a scenario where the legal facts are undeniable. The empire built over decades is collapsing under a perfect storm of IRS audits, House subpoenas, criminal referrals, bankruptcy,